We're a very mature product at this point. It's a very large product. There's lots of teams working on lots of different features, and they all need to assemble inside of Slack in harmony. And so that's really what information architecture is about.
Let's go back in time and look at the first ever design iteration you did.
To be fair, this isn't like a new idea at Slack either. This is something we've talked about and explored several times over the past 6-ish years that I've been here. This is one that we pulled from our back pocket and started to noodle on. At some point, we were just, you know what? Let's give tabs a try, like in earnest. Let's do the work. Let's get the prototypes going and let's see how it feels. And at Slack, that's something that we care a lot about. We always prototype the path.
Folks, I'm super stoked because this is going to be the first information architecture project we're going to be covering on Sneak Peek. Andrew, I'm super stoked to go through an IA project with you.
Oh man, okay. That's a lot of pressure, but yeah, I'm equally stoked. Information architecture is my jam. Yeah.
Wow. So just to give the viewers like an idea, like at a high level, like what was this project about?
Okay. So luckily I have this brief section ready to go, right? Okay. We have this channel header in Slack, and it's a really important part of Slack. It's where you go to, at a glance, get a lot of really important information about who's around. And in addition to that, it's also where you can go access a lot of really important functionality. We currently offer a bookmarks bar. So you can have a bunch of like your links and resources there. But as you see over the years, it starts to get cluttered as we add more and more to Slack. We often need every few years to take a moment and declutter, simplify, and really think about what the purpose of this kind of area is and if it's achieving that. And this is a pretty normal thing for a company like Slack. We're a very mature product at this point. It's a very large product. There's lots of teams working on lots of different features, and they all need to assemble inside of Slack in harmony. And so that's really what information architecture is about. And so you can look at the 2023 header here, and I would say it's starting to get a little cluttered. In fact, yeah, check this out. So we did some research. A lot of the bookmark bars on channels are empty, and it's because we rely a lot on manual creation or curation. A user has to have the want and need to go add things to that bar. And if they don't, then you just are left with this awkward use of space in the channel.
Folks, I'm super stoked because this is going to be the first information architecture project we're going to be covering on Sneak Peek. Andrew, I'm super stoked to go through an IA project with you.
Oh man, okay. That's a lot of pressure, but yeah, I'm equally stoked. Information architecture is my jam. Yeah.
Wow. So just to give the viewers like an idea, like at a high level, like what was this project about?
Okay. So luckily I have this brief section ready to go, right? Okay. We have this channel header in Slack, and it's a really important part of Slack. It's where you go to, at a glance, get a lot of really important information about who's around. And in addition to that, it's also where you can go access a lot of really important functionality. We currently offer a bookmarks bar. So you can have a bunch of like your links and resources there. But as you see over the years, it starts to get cluttered as we add more and more to Slack. We often need every few years to take a moment and declutter, simplify, and really think about what the purpose of this kind of area is and if it's achieving that. And this is a pretty normal thing for a company like Slack. We're a very mature product at this point. It's a very large product. There's lots of teams working on lots of different features, and they all need to assemble inside of Slack in harmony. And so that's really what information architecture is about. And so you can look at the 2023 header here, and I would say it's starting to get a little cluttered. In fact, yeah, check this out. So we did some research. A lot of the bookmark bars on channels are empty, and it's because we rely a lot on manual creation or curation. A A user has to have the want and need to go add things to that bar. And if they don't, then you just are left with this awkward use of space in the channel that isn't really fulfilling a lot of our needs. And in addition to that, up in the top right corner of the channel header, it's a pretty common place for us to add new functionality, but we can really only do that to some extent because look at what's going on up there now. There's a lot of buttons, don't know what any of them mean, and it's feeling pretty cluttered and complex. The other thing that we were struggling with is like some responsive layout stuff. It starts to get a little grungy, and we want to make sure that's going to work well. I think, let's see, what did we write here? We really want to make sure that people understand that channels are where they go to get work done. And I think like the other thing that I want to call out here is the clarified layout. The idea here is that we want to make sure that users are finding the other parts of Slack that help them get their work done, in addition to just sending messages. So how can we help the channel space be a little bit more useful and offer a little bit more utility, and I guess also improve discoverability a bit?
Okay.
And at a glance, we have a lot of cleanup work to do. And what do you think? Should I show you the first ever ideas for this work?
Before we go to the first ever ideas, can we look at the final design that got shipped and then go back in time and look at the first one?
Yeah, here, let's see. For a brand new channel, you're going to get something that looks like this. You'll notice that we've just really gone ahead and cleaned up the top right corner of the channel header, reducing it down to truly what is most important, which what we believe is the member count, and quickly accessing huddles so you can hop on a call. Everything else has been moved into the ellipses menu, and it actually feels quite nice. The other big change happens in that subheader area, which we're calling the tab bar. And here we have a couple different tabs and a plus sign to add more. A more fleshed out channel could look something like this, where a user has added in specific briefs for their work that they're doing. They're using Slack lists to create trackers. They have access to their pins, bookmarks, and workflows. And each of these tabs have layouts that we had to design for and really think about what we wanted to do. And so that's what we ended up shipping. There's a lot here that I can go over, but at a super high level, that's what we ended up shipping.
Now let's go back in time and look at the first ever design iteration you did.
So, from the beginning, we had this idea of tabs. And to be fair, this isn't like a new idea at Slack either. This is something we've talked about and explored several times over the past 6-ish years that I've been here. This is one that we pulled from our back pocket and started to noodle on. And again, the idea was to give distinct sections or areas for these kind of distinct bits of functionality within a channel. And so another way we thought about doing it was not having a sub bar or what did I call it? Subtitle bar. And instead using this older paradigm we used to have, which is like details in this like secondary view. And the idea here is that it's just one click. You always get this kind of very consistent experience in your right-hand side of a channel. And then it supports backstack navigation. And so it's a very like in and out stacked experience that way. And so this was like quite interesting at the time. And then we started playing with, do you have a little bit of each? Is there a way to get to this right side thing, but also still have a tab bar? We played with, I guess just like some other things, but not super important as it relates to like the IA. So we were like really just noodling on these kind of different ways to segment some of this information within Slack. And you can see that early on when we evaluated these things, we were comparing what we're calling enriched details to tabs. And I guess at some point we were just, you know what? Let's give tabs a try, like in earnest. Let's do the work. Let's get the prototypes going and let's see how it feels. And at Slack, that's something that we care a lot about. We always prototype the path. We want to try things out as users ourselves and see what kind of is working and not working. And so that's what we did. We started prototyping the path on tabs. And I showed you earlier, but I'll show you again, my little space. But you can see just how many little bits of work and iterations we did across all this work on tabs. I can show you a couple things if you'd like.
I would love to see some design details, like something you geeked out on in these all these explorations, like some of your favorite ones.
Yeah. Let's see a couple things. Let's see. I'm actually going to start with something super different, which is accessibility, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As I was going through all of this work and we're starting to have conviction on the direction we're going to go with all of the designs and the prototyping and things like that, at some point, it's incredibly important to consider how users of alternate input devices are going to use your software. It's something I care about a lot. And so here, what I'm doing is I'm indicating my expectation for how a user is going to navigate the different sections of Slack using just their keyboard. So we use an F6 paradigm, which allows you to move between the areas indicated here with the F6 key. On Mac, we use Control Command left right arrow. And this is just stuff that's like really important to consider because every layout change you make will impact keyboard navigation, screen reader perceivability, things like that. And so I like to get this done once we have some general idea of how things are going to go with this, with the project. And then we can build it and test it with users who use screen readers and things like that. So that was just one thing I wanted to call out.
I want to dig deeper because this is very new to me. I don't understand how moving the layout would impact the key layout because I see some stuff here that says Shift F6 to move. There's a lot. Can you explain to me like how moving the layout for a newbie like me would impact? I think I just want to understand, like, are we looking at the travel distance, like where the layout is? I think I'm just trying to understand that.
Yeah. So when you use software with your keyboard, for example, the way you know where you are is through a little like focus ring that shows up on your screen. So let me actually show you this in real time. So here we have this little focus ring. And when you use software with a keyboard, you'll get this like little focus ring that might show up on an element. So you start, imagine you don't have a mouse. You open up Slack. So maybe you start up here. Now this top bar is a toolbar. So what that means is I can use the right arrow to move my keyboard focus from this button to this button. And then if I use my right arrow again, it'll go to this button. And if I use my right arrow again, it'll go to this button. When I get to a button I actually want to use, I can use the Enter key. Now, to get to different areas of Slack, like I was saying, we need to use the F6 key or Control Command right arrow. So what that's going to do is it's going to take me from this top area to the next area. So imagine I hit F6, boom, I'm over here on the workspace switcher now. I use F6 again, boom, I'm on the navigation bars or navigation tabs. And so I can use my arrow keys to determine what tab should be active and so on and so forth. And so when you get to more complex areas like this, there's a lot going on here. Let's see, let me just grab a pencil here. Sorry about that. When you start in an area like this, we use the tab key to move between different areas of the UI. So if you think about it in code, these are different divs within a group. Starting here, your tab key moves you to this plus sign. Your arrow keys move you across the toolbar. Your tab key loops you back to the top. Wait, all the way here. And then your arrow keys will move you across the toolbar. Tab will move you to this bar. Arrow keys across this tab list. Tab moves you into the message list. Focus on a message is like a big rectangle here. Up and down arrow keys to move through the channel list. So anyways, I can go on forever here, but you got to think about how layout affects the usability of your software for users who don't just use a mouse. You got to think about how every single person can access every single feature and have that experience be as pleasant as it is for you, the way you use software. And so I think about this stuff all the time. I think about how the arrangement of elements changes, keyboard navigation changes, the screen reader announcement and understanding of what element you're on. There's a lot here for sure.
I am speechless because I'm not taught at this level of depth. But now when I look at this design that you have, I can see that by having the tabs, I feel like it would be easier than for someone just using a keyboard to just tab between them because they're all in the same line, like messages, notes.
Yeah, literally that grouping, the way you said it there, they're all on the same line. If you implement that intelligently in code, that becomes like an efficient mechanism to both move through the line and also before and after. It just makes it really easy. And yeah, we got to think about kind of the constructs we use as we implement and build.
And there was another design exploration you showed me where you were exploring this like tooltip where you would click on the tooltip and the sidebar slides in from the right side. So I felt like that one would be more difficult to use via the keyboard, where you didn't have the tabs at all. You just had.
Are you talking about this one?
Yes, there's no tabs here. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. You want me to take you through what this could be like for a user using a keyboard?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me grab that pencil again. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. Starting in the channel, you start here, right? And so you would like arrow, you get to this button, you hit return, and this whole secondary pane opens up. Where do we land you? Maybe right here on the first element? I don't know. This is tough. There's a lot of tab stops here. So I got to like tab to this thing, tab to this thing, maybe arrow through these, maybe tab to this button, maybe tab down to this list. Maybe if there was more here, you'd arrow through them, maybe tab to this button, maybe tab back down here. It's very complex to move through this in a meaningful way because these are all like different like sections, you know? Actually, here, you want to talk about IA? Let's talk about IA. Oops. Check this out. This is its own list. This is its own list. This is its own list. They're their own lists because they're labeled. Because they are their own lists, for keyboard navigation, they must be treated as such, which means I have to use a tab key press to move into the list, and then arrows to go up and down in the list. But when I get to the end of the first list, arrow keys doesn't bring you to the next list. Tab brings you to the next list. So because they're all their own lists, to navigate through all these items, I have to hit tab a bunch of times. I have to go through all of these things. It's perhaps not the most efficient means to travel through all of this. Yeah. I don't think that's like the main reason why we didn't go with this option, but it's just something I observed.
Also, something I noticed is that because the tabs now are hidden in this side panel, they're not always visible, versus in the design that you all shipped, it's visible always right in front of you.
We think that is a core part of increasing discoverability for things that are outside of messages. Imagine you get to a channel that has, I don't know, something like this. You get to a channel that has a bunch of stuff up here. Now that I can see workflows front and centered, maybe I'm more likely to like go check those out, try using them, see how that might improve my workflows. Literally. Yeah. Good observation on your part.
I'm curious to know if you can share, since you already shipped this, what was the impact of this project on Slack? Did it increase maybe conversions or more clicks on some of these other tabs? If you could share, I don't need the exact metrics, but.
Yeah, great question. So there's like a few things. The first one is, yeah, some of these features get more clicks because they're just more visible now. So that's a nice win, specifically for things like workflows, which are so helpful. You just got to go in there and check them out. But little things like we have one that lets you like sign up for our design crit. You like click a button and it'll slot you in. You like put in your presentation links and everything. It's great. I think the other things that this project did for us was it strategically supported a couple of other projects that would not be possible without channel tabs. Yeah. For example, you might know that Slack was acquired by Salesforce a couple years ago. So this is like pretty cool. And of course, one of the things we're trying to do is bring the ability to manage like your Salesforce records directly in Slack. So let me paint the vision for you. You're a sales associate, you track all of your clients in a big on Salesforce. Imagine if you could just pop open a channel with one of your clients, all of the like invoicing and stuff is already there, all of your records and things like that are just inside of Slack already waiting for you in a type of tab. That type of functionality wouldn't be possible without the project that creates all the tabs for Slack. And that's one strategic win. And another strategic win that, you know, depending when this is released, will also be out is just some big improvements to actually making your first channel or making channels in general. Like, what if you can hit file new channel and then you could tell Slack you wanted a feedback channel for a feature that you released. And what we did for you is we automatically set up a workflow with a big button that says submit feedback and a form that's already made for that feedback form. And all of the entries that a user submits feedback on goes to a Slack list. I'm sure I have a list here somewhere. Here's a list. And you can see all of the feedback that comes in, and we do all of that work for you. We'll set all of that up for you. All you have to do is tell us you wanted a feedback channel. Again, that type of improvement to the like new channel creation experience wouldn't have been possible if we didn't create this tab system. So I think a lot of times when it comes to IA related work, yeah, there are wins, but the wins are really what you enable horizontally across your entire product ecosystem.
Wow. So was there any feature that you really got excited about, but due to some reason, maybe timeline, maybe something else you just couldn't get to?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And you know what? I think that happens at large companies. And it's just part of being a designer. Implementation on certain things takes a little bit longer than you planned. And then you start running out of time for certain things. And so, you know, one example actually was oh boy, what a doozy this was. So we wanted to merge like your pinned messages with like links from your bookmarks bar. And when we rolled that out, basically we got yelled at by our users and people really couldn't find what they were looking for. It didn't make sense to them. And we were getting pretty late in the project. And when you have something like that occur, it can be pretty daunting. What do you do? How do you solve this? Now we got to change something in like the last hour. And oh, guess what? Maybe we're not actually able to budge on our timeline either. What do you do in that case, right? And I ended up coming up with a few different options for how we can handle bookmarks and folders and links and things like that. And one of the things we wanted to do, let me see if I can show you this. We wanted to eventually merge everything together into links and, oh, I don't see it here. Links and messages and pins and everything together in a folder type tab. But we did not have the time to finish that. There was a lot of technical work. I'm going to see if I could find a quick little frame at least to show you here. There's a lot of technical work that kind of like really prevented that. I guess it wasn't easy on the architecture side to merge all those different file types together. So for example, here, what if this was just like a folder? You can call it whatever you want. And so like, here are some pinned messages, here's some files, maybe you have some links, you have some subfolders. All of this could support drag and drop. You can reorder things, move things into folders in specific positions and things like that. We just didn't have the time to do it all. And I think that's just so real. If you like, when you work on these at larger companies, when you have strict timelines and goals, sometimes you need to learn how to make compromises and also how to find MVPs of like little kind of portions of features and then find ways to incrementally get there. Okay, say this is an exploration that we want to do one day. Let me show you what we actually are starting with then. So what we're doing is we're starting with a bookmarks We are just simply starting with a very simple bookmarks folder. All you can do is hold links for now. But maybe the next version will also allow you to add in first-party Slack objects like canvases and lists, and will let you add in subfolders. Then maybe the next iteration after that will merge the pinned messages in here, or whatever that kind of path might be. But you can see, okay, we have this ideal state. Looking at the time, we just don't have the engineering time to get there. Okay, let's scale it back, make some compromises right now, and show how we can get there incrementally through fast follows on the project, or maybe this will just turn into a follow-up project as a whole next quarter, or what have you. And this is what iterating at a large company is actually, right? Real constraints that don't always have to do with design or users. You also have feasibility constraints and business viability constraints as well.
This is super helpful. Hey, this is Jay. It means the world to me that you watched this video. If you want to unlock the AI design and growth design interviews with designers at some of the top companies in the world, then head on over to sneakpeek.design and subscribe to the newsletter.